When my cousin Cody and I were in our early 20s, we went on a handful of camping trips around Colorado. This happened when I was 22 and he was 23, and it took place in Erpo Forest. It was my first time camping there, but not Cody's. As we often did, we were camping in the middle of the week, since our jobs allowed us to take off days during the week, and we liked to avoid the weekend crowds. I always let Cody take charge on these trips since he's the Eagle Scout, not me. We parked near a picnic area and set foot into the woods from there. After about 15 minutes of hiking deeper into the forest, we found a good spot to set up camp. A clearing big enough for 2 tents, a portable stove, and a campfire. The first thing we did was unpack our stuff and set up the tents. Cody was always much quicker than me when it came to pitching a tent. He could do it in just a few minutes, while it always took me over 20 minutes. Or rather, it used to take me over 20 minutes, since I haven't been camping in the wilderness again since this trip. Next, we created a ring of stones for the fire and gathered some sticks and wood. Cody brought some fire starter and a lighter, so I guess we kind of cheated, but oh well. By then, the sun was starting to set, and we had a fire going. Cody was grilling up some steak and burgers. One thing about Cody is he always went all out with food on these trips, and he's a really good cook, so I always trusted him to feed us. Of course, we had our bear spray in case the smell of food attracted a black bear, although Cody always said that was very unlikely. He always claimed that the real thing to worry about in the woods was other people. As we ate our steak and burgers, we cracked open some beers and played classic rock on the speaker. If you've never been camping, you might not understand how good the vibe is. Sitting in the wilderness with a friend or family member, having a few beers, reminiscing about good times and vibing to music. As it got dark, we started playing card games on the little folding platform table we brought specifically for cards. Eventually, we started playing Uno. That was when we started hearing something out in the woods. I paused the music on my phone so the speaker went silent. It was clear now. We could hear a person humming and footsteps from beyond the trees in the pitch blackness of the forest. Cody urged me to find the flashlight, but by the time I did, the sounds had faded away. I asked him if it was something we should be concerned about, and he said it was definitely unusual for someone else to be that deep in the woods, let alone creeping around without a flashlight by someone else's campsite and humming loudly. I was a bit shaken, and I could tell Cody was too, but we went back to playing cards, keeping the music much lower now. Then, when we had finally let our guards down again, a big stick landed in the middle of the campsite, making us both jump out of our skin. It didn't fall from a tree. This thing had been thrown at us. Cody started yelling something along the lines of, "Whoever's out there messing with us, get a life." Then footsteps could be heard again, walking away. I suggested that we pack up and move somewhere else, but Cody said absolutely not. He told me to keep the bear spray close by when we went to sleep. It was the closest thing we had to a weapon. We kept hearing sounds like tree branches cracking in the distance, sounds you don't expect animals to make. Someone was out there, maybe even multiple people. Eventually, we agreed to take turns going to sleep, while the other kept watch to make sure no one came to our campsite. Cody agreed to take the first watch. He said he would stay up and read his book, so I crawled into my tent, got into my sleeping bag, and went to sleep. Waking up in the middle of the night while camping is normal. You're in a cold outdoor environment in an uncomfortable sleeping bag, and any number of things could wake you up. I didn't know what woke me up at first, though. My brain was still foggy, and I couldn't quite tell what was happening. But then, I looked up and saw a head peering into my tent. I rubbed my eyes, but the darkness made it hard to see anything. I said, "Cody?" thinking he was waking me up to take my turn keeping watch. "Is it my turn?" I asked groggily. Then, I heard the zipper on the tent quickly zip up, and his head disappeared. I laid back down in my sleeping bag, but only for a second. Suddenly, I had a weird moment of clarity. I shot up into an upright position and listened as the footsteps walked away. "Cody?" I said. He didn't answer. I unzipped my tent to peek outside, and the fire was dead. Cody was gone. I went over to his tent, which was zipped up, and opened it to find him fast asleep in his sleeping bag. I got chills, goosebumps, whatever you call them, and almost passed out at the realization. I started shaking him awake. When he finally stirred, I told him, "Someone else is here." It took him a minute to come back to reality, just like I did. But when he did, he grabbed the bear spray. He said he must have dozed off while reading. He told me I should sleep in the tent with him that night, but I'd need my sleeping bag. He came outside with me to stand watch while I ran to my tent to grab it. While I was rolling up the sleeping bag, I heard that goddamn humming again from outside. "Do you hear that?" I asked Cody, and he said yes. We rushed back to his tent and zipped it up, with our cans of bear spray by our sides. I'll tell you, in those moments, I wanted nothing more than for a bear to come and save the day. The hours dragged on while I stayed up and Cody slept. After 3 long, horrible hours, I woke him up and we switched. When Cody woke me up in turn, it was almost dawn. There was light outside. We packed everything up, and by the time we were done, there was plenty of sunlight to hike back to the car. While we could have driven somewhere else for another night of camping, neither of us were feeling it anymore. This had been a haunting experience, and I think we both just wanted to be home. It's been 6 years since that happened, and Cody's asked me a few times about camping, but I haven't had much interest since this happened. People are just too scary. Why was someone stalking our campsite? And the sight of that person's head in the dark, just looking into my tent, it was straight out of a nightmare. I may never go camping again. I've always loved the quiet. I moved up to this little cabin in rural upstate New York about 5 years ago, away from the chaos of the city. The place is big, secluded, and the woods stretch far beyond my property. The nearest neighbor is miles away, and the only sounds you can hear are the wind in the trees and the occasional bird chirping in the distance. It's peaceful, and that's how I like it. Fishing is my thing. I spend most of my time on the lake that sits just behind my house. It's the perfect place to escape everything. I don't mind being alone. Hell, I enjoy it. The cabin has a huge deck that looks out over the woods. I often sit out there with a cold beer in my hand, watching the sun dip behind the trees and listening to the nighttime sounds of the woods. It's always been peaceful, until about 2 weeks ago. I was on the deck like usual, just staring into the dark when I heard something. A snap of a twig in the distance. I didn't think much of it. A deer maybe, or a raccoon. The woods are full of life, and I've gotten used to the noises over the years. But as the days went by, the sounds became more frequent. At first, it was just twigs snapping or leaves rustling, things I thought were animals. But then I heard something different. A scratching sound. It came from the side of the house one night, somewhere near the window of the spare bedroom. It was very quiet, almost like it was trying to be sneaky. I stood up from my chair, my heart pounding a little faster than usual, and I waited. But nothing came. Probably just a squirrel, I told myself. But something didn't feel right. I decided to go inside and lock up for the night. The next evening, I heard it again. The scratching. It wasn't just at the side of the house anymore. Now it was closer, and it sounded like it was coming from right outside the window. I froze, listening carefully as my nerves started to fray. I couldn't explain it, but something felt off. I went to the window and pulled the curtains back slightly to see what was outside. The moonlight illuminated the trees, casting long shadows across the yard. The wind was still, and everything seemed normal. I didn't see any animals or people. I told myself it was just my imagination running wild. It had probably been a branch brushing up against the window, or maybe just the wind. I told myself it wasn't anything to worry about, and I went to bed. The next night, it wasn't just scratching anymore. It became a light tapping, as if somebody were trying to get my attention. I jumped out of bed and grabbed a flashlight, creeping through the dark hallway toward the spare bedroom. When I reached the window, I shone the flashlight outside. There was nothing there, just the same empty woods. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. I knew something was wrong. I tried to go back to bed, but I couldn't sleep. Every little noise seemed louder, and every creak of the floorboards sounded like someone moving around in the house. I stayed awake, listening, but eventually, I fell asleep out of sheer exhaustion. The nights went on and the sounds didn't stop. I'd hear them every night, always the same, a tap, a scratch, sometimes even a faint whisper that seemed to come from within the walls. I tried to ignore it, but it was getting harder. One night, I decided to confront whatever was causing it. I grabbed a crowbar from the shed out back, figuring it might be a good idea to have something in case things got weird. I went to the spare bedroom and carefully opened the door. I hadn't used the room in months. I shone the flashlight around the room, moving slowly, checking every corner, under the bed, behind the dresser. Nothing. I stood there for a minute, feeling like an idiot. There was nothing, just the same old room. But as I turned to leave, I noticed that the closet door was slightly ajar. I knew I hadn't left it that way. My stomach dropped. I slowly walked over and pulled open the door. And as the flashlight filled the back corner of the closet, I saw a small piece of cloth caught on the edge of the wall. It looked like a dark, torn piece of clothing. I couldn't think straight. I backed out of the room, slammed the door shut, and bolted it. I didn't want to stay in that house another second, so I went outside, hoping the fresh air would clear my mind. But the darkness of the woods felt like it was closing in on me. I slept on the couch that night, with my crowbar within reach, but I didn't hear anything else. It was quiet. The next night, just as I was about to drift off to sleep, I heard it again. The tap, tap, tap against the window. I jumped up, heart racing, and grabbed the flashlight. I ran to the spare bedroom, not caring how loud my footsteps were. This time, when I pulled back the curtain, I saw a shadow. Someone was standing just outside my window, barely visible in the dim light. I froze. I didn't want to believe it. Then I ran to my phone and called 911, my hands shaking so much that I could barely dial. I gave them my address, and they said they'd send someone out right away. I hung up and looked around the room. I wanted to leave. I couldn't stay there anymore. As I turned to grab my jacket, I heard something from the hallway. A slow creak. Someone was moving through the house. Without hesitation, I ran for the back door, flinging it open and tearing through the woods. I ran as fast as I could, not stopping to look back. My lungs burned with every step. By the time I made it to the edge of the property, I could see the flashing lights of the police cars in the distance. I waited behind a tree as the officers arrived at the house, guns drawn, searching the place. But they never found anything. I haven't been able to stay the night there ever since. The cabin is still there, sitting alone in the woods, but it doesn't feel like home anymore. Every time I close my eyes, I hear that tap, tap, tap against the window.